We're back, and before we jump into a new series, I want to say thanks to you. Thanks for listening, thanks for your comments, your emails, all the messages you've sent in recent months. I'm also delighted to say a partner has come on board to ensure we can continue to celebrate our makers. More about that later. Right now, I just want to go somewhere with you, so let's do that. Cue the usual music. My name's Steve, and I love people who make things.
You might need to take off your trousers, and we see...
A number of times people have asked me to take off my trousers in a workshop hand. They sit at the heart of our communities, spreading wealth across the country.
I look forward to Mondays.
I love Mondays too.
And I'm going to die here. I'm never going to retire.
The isolation is great. No crowds apart from the tourists and sheep.
And the occasional podcaster like me. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
These are uncertain economic times. Keep our manufacturers alive and we'll thrive.
We all learned how to do everything here because there's so few of us left.
It is becoming a little harder to get young kids out of college that want to get their hands dirty and learn some of these very traditional art forms.
Join me as we compile a list of the greatest items made in the UK and hear stories from inside our factories.
My father has a phrase, he said, you should plan like you're going to live forever and live like you're going to die tomorrow, which I think is a very good way of looking at it.
We need you to live much longer than that, Martin. Welcome to the factory next door and welcome to the beautiful Ardnamurchan area of Western Scotland. I do hope I have pronounced that right. We are here to celebrate an industry which is tremendously important and tremendously loved. The Scotch industry employs 41,000 people, and do you know, 2 million people visit distilleries every year. It's Scotland's most popular tourist attraction. You and I are going to pop into a distillery now. I'm just going to introduce myself at the reception. Whilst I do that, have a listen to what's coming up in today's episode.
So I had to persuade these short arms to grow somewhat and look at funding the capital, bring our own production online, which was to build a distillery.
We'd thought about moving back, still got family here, and then they built a distillery.
A lot of people who have come to me who say, oh, we want to build a distillery on our farm. And I go, hang on, how much do you think this is going to cost?
Are you really proud of that? Do you ever just kind of lift it up and have a look at that?
we put unwanted guests in here as well.
Oh, right, better be careful what I say. You must get used to kind of like barrel Jenga.
Well, no, not Jenga, because it always falls down at the end of Jenga. The opposite of Jenga.
I love that test. So the success of that test is getting it wrong.
Yes, I wish that was life. Alex Bruce, Managing Director. We are going to go into the still room where it will be a lot warmer, and we're going to work backwards from the still room through the fermentation, the mashing, and then we'll go into the warehouses where the casks are all filled and laid down to rest.
Yeah, it is a little bit cold, but I've got to say, what amazing weather we've got. Blue skies all the way here.
It's always sunny in Ardnamurchan.
I've heard that. Oh no, hang on. People haven't been telling me that.
No, I mean, what we do get here, because we are so close to the Atlantic, this is basically the most westerly part of the mainland. We get all the weather, and you normally get it all in one day. So you'll get lovely blue sky, and you turn around and it's raining and it's blowing a hoolie. But this all helps for our match.
You say a hoolie?
A hoolie.
What's a hoolie?
It's just a big wind.
Okay, let's go before the hoolie comes in.
We'll go this way.
Oh, wow. Okay, we walk through a door and magically we are straight into a large warehouse with two, am I right in thinking these are copper stills?
Exactly. So you have the largest still on your left, which is called the wash still. So that is taking the wash, which is basically the fermented liquid. And then you have the second still, which is where the spirit runs off, and that is aptly named the spirit still.
Hopefully I'm not offending anyone here. They're like two giant onions.
No, yeah, they are actually. They're fairly typically shaped. They're traditional. You can get all kinds of shapes of stills. Scotch whisky tends to be fairly bulbous at the bottom with a medium to long neck. Basically speaking, because you've already noted they're made of copper, the copper is cleaning, it's purifying. And the longer the neck, the more pure your spirit is. But of course, the lighter it is as well. And here in Ardnamurchan, we're looking for a reasonably heavy spirit, although we're looking for purity as well. So ours they're not too long. I introduce you to Stuart.
Stuart, very nice to meet you. How are you doing, Stuart?
Yeah.
What's your job, Stuart?
I'm a stillman, mashman.
So these stills, they're your babies?
Yeah, you could call them that, yeah. Babies or girlfriends or whatever you want to say.
Have you always been a stillman?
No, I haven't always been a stillman. So started in the warehouse and just a progression up the way to the production side. Yeah.
What were you doing before you joined here then?
Well, various roles, but mostly project management. I'm a building surveyor, so I've done a degree in building surveying. So,
what brought you out here then? Because I've got to admit, we're very remote out here.
We lived even remoter than that. We lived out on the islands as well. So we've always, my partner and I have always had an ambition to move north west. We've been up here now for best part of 18 years.
I mean, it's a beautiful area. Do you like the isolation?
The isolation is good. It has its plus points and it has its bad points as well, especially the power cuts. And we get a lot of power cuts here in this distillery, which can hamper the production as well. So, yeah, but the isolation is great and no crowds apart from the tourists and sheep.
And the occasional podcaster like me. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
So I left university mid-90s. I did languages at university and we had to go off and work in one of the countries. So I chose France, and because of being Scottish and being always interested in Scotch whisky and stuff like that, I thought, well, what's the French equivalent? And it happened to be cognac. So I managed to blag my way into the marketing department of Remy Cointreau, or Remy Martin to be specific. Beautiful offices on the Rond-Point de Champs-Élysées in Paris.
Nice.
And that was the hook. That was what I really wanted to do. But I then came back into Scotland just as the Scotch whisky industry was clawing its way back out of the last downturn. So I ended up working in wine for quite a few years. Through that, got the opportunity to meet the new owners of this company, because it had just been sold in 2003, and they offered me a job to run what was a pretty niche company back then.
Tell me about the niche company that you were taking over then to run.
So the company, which is and as was Adelphi Distillery Limited, was the name of the company, had been founded by an old friend of mine in 1993. So he was an independent bottler. He would go around sourcing the best single cask he could find. He never did more than maybe 20 a year, 20 single casks. So I inherited, taking on the company in 2004, I think 3 casks, which still had liquid in them, and a couple of hundred assorted bottles, which he'd already bottled. Adelphi kind of flatlined at about 100 casks. And it's not because we couldn't grow, it wasn't because we didn't have enough demand. It was quite the opposite. We couldn't find enough third-party stock that A, we were able to buy, and B, that we liked enough to put the Adelphi brand on it. So literally by 2007, so only 3 years after I took it on, we'd got to this kind of plateau. And I vividly remember my board meeting with my main shareholders. And typically the Scots have very deep pockets, but remarkably short arms, as we like to say. So I had to persuade these short arms to grow somewhat and look at funding the capital to basically bring our own production online, which was to build a distillery.
Is power cuts a bit of an issue?
Yes.
I mean, that does lead me to an obvious question, Alex, as we go into another room. It does lead me to an obvious question. Why have you built the distillery here?
So, there's 2 main reasons, really. One was the sort of main shareholding for the company is based up here. The other one was ultimately to try and bring a long-term business of reasonable size to a very, very small remote community. And apart from the fish farm and the estate, there's very little else except for the small kind of cottage industry. And then the other bit, which I really should mention, is it is actually, from a climate point of view, a fantastic place to make whiskey. the purity of the water, the long-term maturation benefits in the warehouses, which we'll see later. This is really the epicenter of whisky in terms of production.
Just a sweet spot
Yeah.
for making whiskey.
Absolutely.
A sweet, isolated spot.
So just to put it into perspective, this was 2007, 2008. Even though we didn't finish the build until 2014, there was a lot of planning. Back then, there had only been 2, possibly 3 distilleries built in Scotland in the last 50 years. After us, there was a massive rush of new distilleries. But back then, there were very few people to go and talk to about how to build a distillery, and especially of this size, and especially concentrating on just producing single malt. Because most of the distilleries in Scotland that had come before us were there predominantly to make bulk whisky to be traded for blending. And even today, 80% of Scotch whisky is made for blending purposes. So we had very little foundation to work from. We didn't know what size, we didn't know what criteria we needed in terms of water, land size, all the rest of it. So there was quite a lot of back and forth over the next 2 or 3 years.
What's been the greatest challenge then? What gave you the sleepless nights?
The obvious one is cash. I mean, and a lot of people who have come to me subsequently who say, "Oh, we want to build a distillery on our farm to add value." And I'm going, hang on. I said, first of all, how much do you think this is going to cost? And that was exactly the same question that got posed to us. So, the manufacturers of the stills, that turnkey system, the building, the land preparation, all the rest of it. A distillery of this size, it's probably going to come in, certainly back then, 4 to 5 million, something like that. So you go, yeah, we could just about scrape that together, we can raise a bit. But that is not the cash you need. The cash you need is for building the stock, because it's got to mature. You're just going to be building stock. And eventually, 5, 8, 10, 12 years down the line, and you don't even know that at the beginning, it's going to be ready for you to bottle.
So you sink in 3, 4, 5 million to get going,
Yeah.
and then you've got running costs for years where you're building your stock that you're still paying for without getting any money coming in.
And if I'm talking nowadays, because the running costs have really escalated, certainly since COVID, raw material costs, etc. If I'm talking to someone nowadays who's asked that question, it's minimum 4 times what it costs you to build to get to the point where you might have something to sell. But even then, it's not going to break even. You're not going to be profitable because you've got to build the brand. Right, we're going to walk through the mill, where obviously the barley is crushed into a flour, just like making beer. Fortunately, it's not on, because if it was, we wouldn't be able to talk or listen.
Oh, it's gone much quieter now, hasn't it?
You can see right up into our mill, and it makes an absolute racket. One of the only other things to note about this part of the building is it is very separate, as you can see. The dust you get off a mill is explosive, so we have to be incredibly careful to keep this separate.
Did you say the dust is explosive?
Yeah. So we're not milling at the moment, it's dust-free, we keep it clean, but when we design the building all the way up at the top, that roof is designed to blow off, so that if there was ever to be an explosion, and there is never an explosion, but if there was, everything would go out the top.
Okay, you're blowing my mind, excuse the pun, about how whiskey is made here.
Wherever you create dust, it is in volume, it is, you've got to really watch it.
So the dust is potentially very dangerous, and you've designed the roof of your distillery to come off.
Yeah, but that is the last resort, of course. We have a massive dust extraction system here, as you'd expect for health and safety, and it is very much a self-contained. So when the mill's running, the doors are shut, that's it.
Hi, I want to quickly jump in here because I am delighted to say that our show has a new partner, and one with a long history of helping manufacturers optimize their operations. AVEVA is a leader in industrial intelligence. It was founded almost 50 years ago in Cambridge. Today, its software connects and empowers people to improve plant productivity, sustainability, business agility. And if you're interested in manufacturing, which I'm guessing you are if you're hanging out with me, AVEVA's got a newsletter. Do sign up for it. go to www.aveva.com/factory. I'll put the link in the show notes. My thanks to AVEVA for supporting the factory next door and for supporting our makers. Oh, we're going outside now.
So this is, as we said at the beginning, we're going back to front. This is the first part of the whole process we're just standing next to now, under this traffic cone. And
the whole process starts with a traffic cone.
That's purely to make sure no one reverses on the door. But under that door, the barley lorry, 28-ton lorry, which comes in every 8 to 10 days.
How do they get down those roads?
They're good drivers. They know us well. We were the first Scottish or Scotch whisky distillery to be completely fueled by locally sourced renewable forestry. So surrounding the Ardnamurchan, or in the Ardnamurchan Peninsula, there is hectares upon hectares of timber forestry, and because of our remoteness, it doesn't make commercial sense really to take it out to make furniture or whatever. So for years and years, the landowner, the estate here, was scratching their heads trying to work out what they could do with their timber. And by putting us in here, we burn 1 ton of wood chip every 2 hours. We became the sort of focal point for their plant, their wood chip plant.
Oh, powered by wood chip?
Heated by wood chip and powered mainly by hydroelectric, it's off the river, and solar panels on some of the warehouse. I'm going to ask Callum at this stage, because I always get the button wrong. Do you know how to open this?
No, you're asking the wrong guy. I can get someone to open it.
We'll get Dave to open it.
Oh, just press some buttons. What's the worst that can happen, Alex?
So where we built this site, so this is like a giant swimming pool underneath. It's 15 metres long, it's 5 metres deep, and it's got 2 moving floors, and all the wood chip that gets dumped in it gets fed through to the boiler, which you can hear.
That is amazing. So we're just basically stood on a large tarmacked area, which I assumed was just, there's a tractor parked here. I just assumed it was a little kind of car parking spaces. And
there we go.
Oh my word, the grid, there's just a rectangular steel grid which is lifting up in what I thought was this car park to reveal a huge room full of wood chip. An underground bunker full of wood chip. It's very Batman-esque, that is, isn't it? That is super cool. So that is. Are you really proud of that? Do you ever just kind of lift it up and have a look at that?
we put unwanted guests in here as well.
Oh, right. Better be careful what I say. Walking around now, you've mentioned a few times, kind of the circular economy ethos that is clearly running through the whole process here. Why does that matter? Why have you incorporated that?
We are doing this because it is right for where we are. It makes no commercial sense to be bringing in heavy oil. You can't get gas piped here. So the only other real thing is to bring in heavy oil in tankers along a single track road. It just doesn't make sense. So the wood chip came from finding the nearest raw material that we could for fuel, and that happened to be trees. And then from that, obviously everything behind the wood chip has to be renewable, so the forestry is replanted. Your byproducts are feeding the cattle, so that takes all the heavy loads of animal feed that normally would come into the peninsula off the roads. So that's another heavy haulage point. But as I say, we're not really pushing the fact that we might be one of the greenest or most sustainable distilleries out there. We're simply doing it because it makes commercial sense, and it does give you a good feeling. It makes you think about things a little bit more closely every time you make a decision. We're going to go in this door here, hopefully.
Okay, wow. So we've come into, I'd describe this as a warehouse full of barrels.
Yeah, so this is what we call a traditional Dunwich warehouse. Natural floor, as you can see.
Yeah,
floor.
The floor is basically gravelly, hard-packed soil.
What was here before, with a bit of solidity, I suppose, just to keep it there. The idea behind a Dunwich warehouse is the least efficient in terms of storage, getting enough casks in for the space. And it's also the least efficient when you want to get a cask out. You've got to completely take apart a stow rather than just taking one out of a rack. But it is the best in terms of flavour, because as you can feel, it's quite cold in here.
This
It is quite cold in here.
This is year-round temperature. It's about 12 to 13 degrees year-round. It's very humid. You can see the lovely angel share, all that black mould inside the warehouse. So as the alcohol evaporates, it also gets absorbed back in. So every cask is helping its neighbour out.
Just for the listeners, it's barrels which are round, laid on their side in a row, and then you're putting wood on top of them and putting another row of barrels on top. You know, it has to be so precisely and neatly done.
Yeah, no, it's something very special to witness.
If I wanted that one at the bottom there, I mean, that's a heck of a job. You really wouldn't thank me if I wanted that one,
Well,
would
you
you?
could ask Ali, who's in charge of the warehouse, what he
You'd
thinks.
have to take all of these off. Hello, Ali. Very nice to meet you. How are you doing?
Not too bad. Hiya.
Yeah. So, Ali, you're in charge of this, are you?
Yes, well, the team that works in here, the warehouse
So
team.
if I did ask for that one on the bottom there, what would you say to me?
We'd say yes to your face. We'd say something very different over here. But no, sometimes, unfortunately, as I'm sure Alex has explained to you, all casks might look the same, but each one is individual, and there may be an instance where that one at the bottom tastes better than the ones at the top, or it's ready sooner. So, that's just the nature of it.
You must get used to kind of like, I don't know, would it be like barrel Jenga?
Yes, Well, no, not Jenga, because it always falls down at the end of Jenga. The opposite of Jenga. Yeah. There's a lot of planning involved that you have to do to build these up high. Plus, obviously, my team will then be working at height, which can be a wee bit hazardous. So, as long as you take your time and make sure the bottom's strong enough, and then as you go up, it gets easier.
How long have you been working here?
What are we in now? 7 years. Yeah, 7 years now, yeah. Yeah, it's great, and it allowed us, my wife and our young family, to move back to the area, which might not have been possible otherwise, in terms of providing employment.
I'm really interested. Can I ask you a little bit more about that?
Yeah.
So you grew up in this area and moved away for employment?
No, my family is from here, and then I lived here in my 20s, which were a while ago. And
Not that long ago.
Oh, you're good. And then I moved to Glasgow after that, and then my wife and I, we'd thought about moving back, still got family here. And then they built a distillery, and then a few years into that, an opportunity arose, and it's good jobs for people, and it can bring, young families back. So now my kids are in the school, which is important. In an area with such a small population,
So the building of this distillery truly actually allowed you to move back to an area you had left quite a few years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's been true for a couple of the guys as well. Or it's allowed young people who've spent their whole lives here, they don't need to move away. Traditionally everyone would have then gone away. But now, there's an industry where you can stay, and you might move away one day in the future, but at least you'll have a good grounding before you do,
You have opportunities.
Absolutely.
Pleasure talking to you.
Cool. That's great. Thank you. Cheers now.
We knew we would have to bring experience in to start with, but we knew that just very organically, very naturally, that experience that we'd brought in probably wouldn't survive more than a couple of winters out here, or a couple of mid-G seasons in the summer. And quite rightly, it didn't. The experience we brought in moved on. But they left their legacy, they left their experience in production that they gained at other distilleries over tens of years in
They
Scotland.
passed on their knowledge.
They passed on their knowledge. They passed it on to the local community. We are 100% local workforce in the distillery, and have been for a number of years now.
What was kind of the reaction when it was announced that this distillery was going to be made here and built here? Because obviously it is quite remote, and I just wondered, did the local community embrace it right from the off? Was there any skepticism about kind of building, kind of a big plant like this here? I just wonder, kind of what the immediate reaction was from the community. I get the sense now it's very warmly embraced, certainly.
So you could probably look back through the Highland Council planning website and see that reaction, and it wasn't 100% at all. We had a very, very strong support for it, especially from West Ardnamurchan, which is obviously west of here. But a lot of the community to our east have come in to retire quite rightly. They've come for the peace and the quiet, the bird watching, the sea life, all the rest of it. And their immediate reaction, obviously, was industry coming to the peninsula is not a good thing. So there was a lot of dialogue, a lot of explaining of what this industry actually is and what it entails. There is a little bit of noise, obviously, but it's not ridiculous. But everything is natural during this process. There's no chemicals. It's simply water, barley, and yeast. So gradually, we pretty much won everyone over.
Given the current geopolitical situation in the world, we are seeing lots of interesting tariffs and things taking place. The Scotch industry is so important. I just want to know whether you're concerned at all.
We've had this before. We've been around for centuries as an industry, and yes, we've peaked and troughed. And it isn't a downturn. It's a levelling. I think it's a shaking of the tree. But this is the first time it's happened since the late 80s, early 90s. And the big difference between the two eras is that we have single malt now as a big player in our industry. So really Macallan launched its first single malt in 1980. And then really from the 2000s onwards, it started, the industry started gaining traction in that category. If you're making single malt, it's your whiskey. Single malt literally means one distillery, single distillery. So you are the production, you are the marketing, you are the sales. It's up to you to make the brand work. So this time round, because we have control, we are able to stabilize the leveling, I think, better. And then in terms of just generally how the tariffs matter or don't matter, I think specifically for America, we are currently under the minimum 10% tariff. It's not a big thing, to be honest. We had 25% a few years ago. We take a hit, the importer takes a hit, it stays at the same price. That might not be the same case for everyone, but that's the way we do it. I'm not worried. There are some knock-on effects which worry a bit more. The fight with China, the trade war with China. China is another big market, and if that suffers, we potentially lose more there than we lose in America.
Final question, Alex. I'm not going to ask you whether you enjoy your job, because I know the answer to that, because it's basically oozing from you through the whole of this morning. But I want a sense of what is your favourite part of your job.
The bit I look forward to the most is having put a new batch of whiskey together. At the end of the day, we're trying to make a whiskey that we enjoy, because if there's 5 or 6 of us in a room who enjoy it, hopefully that means there's a good spread of other people that will enjoy it. We get the core of that 60, 70, 80 cask, whatever it's going to be. We've got a big beaker. It all gets tipped in, gets mixed up. We add the correct amount of water, give or take. And all of us, apart from one, leave the room. And the one remaining pours some of that beaker into a bottle without a label, alongside 3 other blind bottles. And those are the previous editions of that whiskey, so the previous batches. We are looking for reasonable consistency, and that's another part of the brand building. So we then come back in the room and we try and determine which one's which. And if you get it wrong, and inevitably we do now, then you've got brand consistency. To see it having reached that stage from all the headaches and distress that we've been through over the years, and the passion that these guys here put into it, it's a culmination of everything that we do.
I love that test. So the success of that test is getting it wrong.
Yes. I wish that was life.
And on that note, Alex, it's been an absolute joy hanging out with you these past few hours. Thank you so much for taking us around your amazing distillery. Thank you to your team, and very best of luck for the future.
Thank you very much for coming.
Birds are singing. It really does feel like spring has finally arrived. Okay, into our shed of greatness goes the single malt, number 31 on our list of the greatest products we make here. Huge thanks to Alex and the whole team at Ardnamurchan Distillery for showing us around. There's lots more places for us to visit in the coming months. I hope you'll join me. If you're on Instagram, do say hello at the factory next door. Okay, whilst the sun is out, I think I'm going to head off and record another British Outfit of the Day reel. But wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I hope you're happy. Until next time, bye. My thanks again to our new partner, AVEVA. They're such a good fit for the show because they're in the business of helping manufacturers, and they've been doing it for more than 50 years. A leader in industrial intelligence, AVEVA's software connects and empowers people to improve plant productivity, sustainability, and business agility. Just a reminder that AVEVA's got a newsletter, and if you're interested in manufacturing, please do sign up for it. Go to www.aveva.com/factory. Again, I'm going to put the link in the show notes. My thanks to AVEVA for supporting the factory next door.